This episode is sponsored by Plan B Games. To episode 24 of the Board Game Geek Podcast, where we geek out about board games, the mechanisms behind them, and the people who create them. I'm your host, Candice Harris, and I'm super pumped to be here today with a local gaming friend who I rarely get to play with because we're both super busy, but it is Monique from Before You Play. How's it going, Monique?
Hi. Going well. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been wanting to have you on for a while, and it's one of those things where we both live in the LA area, but we live just far enough away that we rarely get to play games together just because of traffic out here is crazy.
That is so true. We'll see each other in other parts of the world.
Yeah. Exactly, more often than we do here.
Yeah, that is so funny.
But anyway, what's new with you?
I feel like nothing, but also everything. You know how it is, especially at this time of year. Just work as usual. It's really we're hot into the new release season, so things are very, very busy. But just trying to stay cool generally.
Yeah,
it's been hot here.
Yeah, cool temperature-wise.
Yes, definitely temperature-wise. It is really hot in LA these days. How about yourself?
Yeah, well, I'm pretty good. I just returned last week from Gen Con, and I had an awesome time. It's just, this is my third time going to Gen Con. The first time I went was in 2021, which was the first year back after the pandemic. And it's kind of been cool to see it gradually grow back to the quote unquote normalcy, even though I didn't know what normal was because I didn't go to Gen Con before. I had never gone before the pandemic. But it was super cool. We had a small team from the BGG crew was there. Some people were running the hot games room.
Oh, nice.
At the Hyatt. That was cool. Big success as always, because it's just people can come play the games, all the hot new games before they decide if they want to go buy them.
Yeah.
So that was cool. And then Eric Martin and I were on foot, kind of meeting with different publishers, checking out games, taking pictures and all that.
Wow.
So we can report back in BGG news. And Eric was doing some social media. But
wow, you were busy.
Yeah. And you know
busy.
how it is at these conventions, these bigger conventions, you don't really get to play as many games as you would hope.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I've only been to Gen Con once, but I definitely know that was true the one time we went.
Yeah.
It is a whirlwind.
Yeah, it's a whirlwind. And you think you're gonna be I'm gonna play all these hot new games, and it's no, you're gonna get some games and maybe
you're gonna see them.
Yeah, you're definitely gonna see them. But I actually ended up. I haven't put any official photos or reports out yet from all these different pictures and notes I took from Gen Con because I unfortunately got sick as soon as I got back, and so I'm just slowly recovering. But so that was not great, but I had a great time when I was there.
Good, I'm glad. And you're doing better?
Yes.
Better now. Okay,
I'm
good.
I'm doing better, thank you. And I just wanted to just say thanks again so much to everyone who stopped me at Gen Con to just tell me how much they enjoy the BGG podcast or my BGG news contributions or cardboard creations interviews, or even just to say hi. It's so rare that I get the opportunity to engage with listeners, let alone meet them in person. So it really warmed my heart so much and just kept me smiling all day as I'm running through the crowded convention hall. And it just makes me feel really grateful for my job and also just really appreciative of everyone, who takes the time to listen to this podcast. Because Monique, you and I know this, like there's just so much awesome content to consume, in and out of the board game industry,
Yes.
Like there's just so much. So just big thank you to everyone who listens to this podcast. And thanks again to everybody who stopped me to say hi.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm still kind of like buzzing and, my heart is like vibrating from those really nice encounters.
That's great. It's the little things and the big things, right? That really keep you going.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
And I didn't realize it too, because it's like, with a podcast, we don't have like a Discord server for this where we're like engaging with the audience, the listeners that much. So I was just kind of like, it's cool to know that there are people out there listening and enjoying it.
On the other side.
Yeah, exactly. On the other side.
Yeah.
Because I certainly enjoy doing it. So, so that's cool. But anyway, today, even though it was just Gen Con and we have all these new games, I'm sure you're kind of flooded with new games, either like Essen preview games or Gen Con releases, new games, new games. But today we're going to mix it up and we're going to discuss oldies but goodies. Yes. We're talking about board games that came out 15 plus years ago that are still bangers. I mean, like, I don't, Monique, when did you get into the hobby? You and Nivian?
We got into the hobby in 2015. So I don't know. In the back of my mind, it always feels like that wasn't that long ago, but it's getting longer and longer ago. You know what I mean? Like that was almost 10 years ago. Or I guess, that's almost 10 years ago. It's kind of wild to think about. Yeah.
Right? Totally. The same with me. It was like, 2018. It's the industry has just been like growing so much, even since we've been in it. And, things were happening way before we were in it. And I don't know about you, but I find it really fun to kind of discover some of these older games that existed before we were into this hobby. And finding out that some of them are like really good. They're like still like really good.
This is actually one of my favorite things to do.
To find older games?
Yes. Oh yeah. This is cool. Naveen and I, we both love, this is probably, when we go to local conventions and such, like if somebody wants to play a game, we'll say, please pick like the oldest game that is your favorite to play and show that to us because that's awesome. We love discovering the older gems.
That is awesome. Well, but before we start talking about oldies but goodies, I'd love to hear what you've been playing lately, Monique. So let's jump into fresh plays.
Oh my goodness. Well, on our channel, we wrapped up a really long standing series where we played a bunch of Uwe Rosenberg's games.
Oh, nice.
So one of the most recent games that we played was one of his newest designs, which is called Oranienburger Kanal. So this is the first game that I want to talk about. It was actually released this year. So really talking about new, designed by Uwe Rosenberg, of course. And it is the copy that we played is published by Spielworks. Now, I don't know how that's changing or going to change depending on distribution, but that's the original publisher. And the player count is 1 or 2 players only. So it was sort of like the perfect game for us right now because, we typically play a lot of games at the 2-player count. And this one we found it to be really interesting because basically in this game, thematically, you're trying to build the Oranienburg Kanal, I believe it's called. But the way in which you're doing it is everybody has their own player board and there's a whole worker placement mechanism where one player gets 3 turns, the other player gets 2 turns. So you're kind of going back and forth, placing out your, taking an action, I suppose, from this action selection area.
Cool.
And you're just doing things like gaining resources and using them to build industries onto your board. But the thing that's interesting is each industry has some sort of a benefit or like a bonus that activates when the time is right. But in order to activate it, you have to have a certain amount of either railroads or canals or just pathways that are either adjacent to it or somewhere on your board. And the only time you can activate it is either when it's been completely surrounded, or if you build like a second bridge. Like that's another thing they're going to be building on this canal. So it's really interesting because you're trying to build the industries that will serve you the most depending on what you have going on your board. And you're also trying to activate them at a certain time. So it has this really puzzly thing going on for it. And it just, when you look at the game, I don't know what other people think, but I wasn't expecting that sort of gameplay from it. It's very puzzly, and the whole time you're just engaged trying to figure out how to best maximize your board while activating the industries at the right time. So, yeah.
That sounds really cool. And I will say, I'm curious to know, because I'm not the hugest Uwe Rosenberg fan.
You're not.
I know.
That's fascinating.
Shocking. Yeah, I really liked Le Havre, and Le Havre is one of my favorites. But yeah, for some reason, I like Feast for Odin also.
Okay.
So, and that was kind of a discovery earlier this year that I'm like, okay, I see why people love this game.
I would be curious to know what games you've played by Uwe Rosenberg that made you decide that you're not an Uwe Rosenberg fan, I guess. Is that a tough question?
I'm not a farming person, so I haven't gotten into Agricola, but I'm still wondering what year it'll be or when the day will come where I'm going to be telling people, I love Agricola. It's just, I feel like I'm just, I can see future Candice, and I can see that at some point I'm going to get what everybody loves about that game. But I've played it a couple times, and I always am just like, I think I don't like farming. That's the theme. And
that's fair.
And I liked Glass Road.
Okay.
And when I saw this game, Oranienburger Kanal, I think something about the look of it reminded me of Glass Road a little bit, if I recall.
Oh, okay.
But I like the fact that this is one or two players. That's really interesting to me, and it reminds me of Fields of Arle. Right?
Fields of Arle, yeah.
Yeah, Fields of Arle. Which I own that game. And I just I ended up getting it at some point because I thought it'd be a good meaty little 2-player worker placement game. So I like that. I'm just not real Caverna. So
but you have played Caverna?
I have played Caverna also.
Okay, so you don't like Caverna either.
I'm not gonna say I don't like it. I just I'm not I can't wait to play it again kind of thing.
Yeah, that's some fair. People. That's fair.
Yeah, so there's just something that usually doesn't stick with me. But how do you think this one stands up against other Uwe Rosenberg games you like?
Oh, this one is very different. I think that's one of the reasons why I liked it so much. It implements the wheel. I think that's maybe the similarity that you found with Glass Road.
Yeah.
But in a different way. In Glass Road, you automatically make resources. The wheel turns on its own. And in this one, you have to kind of play that into your strategy. You have to decide when to make those resources. So I thought that was interesting. But other than that, it's a lot more abstract than a lot of his other games. A lot of his other games have an abstract component to it, especially in games like Caverna or Agricola or even A Feast for Odin, where you're trying to build out your player board in a certain way. Usually it is with the animals and the farming, but in this way, it's a lot more simple. It's very cut and dry. It's just these cards and then the pathways that you're going to build around your board. That's it. But what he was able to do with it was so fascinating. And the fact that he incorporated different decks that you play with every time to just kind of spice things up. Yeah, I thought was really interesting. And it just plays so well at 2 players only. The fact that he just limited it to 2.
I like that. I like that a lot. All right, you've convinced me. I'm gonna have to try it. I have been really curious about this one, so I'm glad you brought it up.
And, I hope you don't hate it now that I talked it up so much.
No, I won't hate it. I won't hate it. I'm just curious to see how much I like it compared to I think I would say Le Havre is maybe my favorite.
Le Havre is very fascinating. Yeah, that's a quite an economic game.
Yeah.
So I can see why you like that one.
We'll see. I'll have to do an Uwe Rosenberg deep dive at some point. But anyway, that is Oranienburger Kanal.
Yes. Oranienburger Kanal, my game number 1. Yeah.
Cool. So the first night, actually, I guess like the night before Gen Con opened, there were a bunch of like different press events that Eric and I bounced around to. And at the one that Hachette they had a little party kind of event. I got the opportunity to play a game I'd never heard of called Romi Rami, and it's ROMI RAMI. And it's kind of a modern take on Rummy, which I know I've played, I think, at some point maybe. But I don't remember exactly how it works. But this is a new 2023 release. It might have dropped at Gen Con, designed by Antoine Lefebvre. And it's published by Randolph Games and in the US, Hachette. And it's 2 to 4 players. And it's basically this like kind of simple, fun little card game where you're trying to score the most points from playing card combinations to fulfill contracts. And I guess the card combinations are where the rumminess comes in to play.
I see.
Because you're going to be trying to like have like 2 of a kind, 3 of a kind runs, 3 card runs, 5 card runs, and all that kind of stuff. But the deck of cards, there's a deck of cards. It's almost like a poker deck with like normal suits, hearts, diamonds, clubs, spades. But one of the things I like about the game that's kind of charming is that the art of the suits is kind of like hand drawn in this like playful way. So I like that. I like the way the cards looked. And then when you're playing the game, there are 2 card markets. There's going to be a row of cards that are going to be 4 contract cards that are face up. And then there's also like the normal like playing cards. You'll have 6 of them face up. And on your turn, you do 2 things. First, you draft up to 3 cards from the 6 that are face up. And when you're drafting cards, you're either going to pick cards that have the same number or cards that have the same suit. And again, you can take up to 3 cards. And then you're going to try to fulfill as many contracts as you can that are available in the contract row. Or you can like pass and skip that because maybe you're saving up to do something for a bigger turn later, although that contract might not be there when it comes back around to you. So you got to like, kind of be careful with that.
Right.
But yeah, then you're going to take the cards in your hand and see if you can fulfill these contracts. And a contract might be just straight up like a 5-card run. And you say, oh, here, I play 5 cards. There's my 5-card run. I'm fulfilling this contract. And you take that contract. Now, all of the contract cards also, besides having some kind of card combo requirements, they also have a suit on it. So, for example, I could have a contract there that's, I need a pair of 4s, and some of them have specific pairs that they're looking for. So a pair of 4s and a 4-card run. And maybe I do that. And on that contract card, if at the bottom of it, it's a heart, any heart cards that I play into that, like to fulfilling the contract, I get to keep as bonus points. Oh. So the contract card itself will have some amount of points on it. And then like any cards that I play to fulfill it that match the suit of the contract card, I get to keep in a stack. And they're going to be 1 point each. They're like bonus points. So you're trying to like not only fulfill contracts to get contracts that you can score, but you're also trying to score them by playing the cards that the contract the type of cards that the contract wants. So it's really cool. The game ends, I think, after one player has, I think, 5 contracts in front of them. And then you like finish the round and score. And there's one other thing with scoring besides the points from your contracts and those bonus cards I mentioned. But there are these 3 crowns that are going to be kind of randomly placed at the beginning of the game. They're just double-sided tokens, so you just kind of flip them randomly, and these are the 3 crowns we're competing over. And those are for, at the end of the game, majorities. Like, whoever had the most contracts that had 2 of a kind gets 3 points, maybe. Or whoever had won the most contracts that had hearts on them gets 5 points, So that's kind of like varying up the scoring from game to game and giving you something else to strive for. But anyway, it was just like, it was a really fun little game. Really great for like, I think my mom is going to go nuts for this one. It's just something you can like easily teach to even people who don't play modern board games as hardcore as us. Just something late to close out the night. And I found myself at Gen Con after I bought it the next day. I found myself carrying it in my bag anytime I was like, I might have an opportunity to play games with some people later.
Oh, nice.
And it would just be something quick and easy to break out. So, and I did end up playing it one other time when I was at Gen Con, and everybody thought it was fun too. So
that's awesome. And it plays 2 to 4?
2 to 4 players. Yeah, it's called Romi Rami. So that, I don't know. I was just like kind of pleasantly surprised by that.
Yeah, you have me intrigued by that. I really enjoy card games, first of all, and then even card games that have that sort of like rummy component, because rummy itself is a very, very classic game. Very, straightforward. It has like very classic feel to it, but it's not going to get old. you know? And a lot of games sort of borrow that mechanism. I know even something like, at least the Filipino rules to Mahjong kind of borrow on the same sort of combination scoring.
Oh, cool.
So that sounds really interesting. I never thought, to play with contracts, like that sort of concept with just having goals, trying to make those. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
I have to look for that game.
Check it out. And even just the decision of which cards do you want to take, because you can either take only cards of the same number or only cards of the same suit from the 6 cards that are kind of available at the start of your turn. Like that's also, I found that to be a really cool decision point as well.
That is really clever. Have you played it at 2?
No, I have not tried it at 2. I've only played it at 4 both times.
Very curious.
But like I said, it's definitely going to be one of those filler games that I keep in my bag. Probably going to bring it to Strategicon if you're there. But
I'll be there. Let's
Sweet.
play.
Okay, there we go. This is going to be our once a year where we get to play games together.
Actually in LA.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, that was
funny.
Romi Rami. What else have you been playing lately, Monique?
Nice. Well, probably the game that I've been playing the most recently is it's also a card game. Cool. And it's a card game called Inheritors. And so this game was actually released in 2022, and it's designed by, it says Jeffrey CCH and Kenneth YWN. It's also published. So the original publishers is a publishing company called Ice Makes. Okay. And I believe North Star picked it up for a distribution this year. So this is one of like their titles at Gen Con this year.
Oh, cool.
So I played the North Star edition, which has some differences from the original, but the main game is still there. And this game plays 2 to 4 players. And basically, in this game, the theme is there's this entire world built for this game, and the king, unfortunately, has passed. And so now, of course, they're trying to find somebody to succeed the throne. But there are, I believe, 5 different clans who, if you want to succeed the throne, you need to win the favor of these clans.
Of course.
And so the way that the game works is there's a deck of influence cards, and they're going to be of the different colors of the clans, but they only go from 1 to 6. And so one of your main goals is to be able to play these influence cards into sort of a tableau in front of you, but you have to play them to their own stacks. And so if I'm playing the purple clan, I have to start with the number 1 first. And then as soon as I have the number 2 of that purple clan, I would place that on top of the number 1. So each clan has their own stack in your scoring area. And you have to play them in numerical order. So I cannot skip the 2 to get to the 3 unless you have this other card, which we'll talk about. You have to keep on going. But the problem is there are only certain amounts of each number in the deck. So there's only 1 number 5, 1 number 6, and then there's like 4 ones, etc. And it kind of tells you what the distribution is. And so in order to get more cards into your hand, because you're not always going to have the cards that you need, there's this entire market mechanism, which I found to be really interesting. In the market, there's always 3 columns of cards. And one of the actions that you can take is to discard a card from your hand into one of the columns and then take all of the cards in a column that either match the suit or the number of the card that you discarded.
Cool.
So, and I think that's where a majority of the game takes place, in this sort of like this mental game of, that's okay, cool. I'm going to discard this card, but I know that like Naveen needs this card. So I'm going to make sure to not put it into the column where he can just, take all the cards that he needs. So that market mechanism is the heart of what I found to be really interesting. On top of that, there are also like public scoring objectives where it's like if you're the first person to have 4 stacks that show a number 2 in it, then you can claim that card on your turn. There are also, as soon as you play the number 3 of a certain clan, then you are now eligible to take the clan leader, and you can only have 1 clan leader per game. Only one person can have that clan leader, and it basically gives you some sort of asymmetric bonus or ability that's now yours for the rest of the game.
Love that.
There's also face down private objectives if you can discard 3 cards of the same color. So it does a lot of things in a sort of neat small box sort of package. And to top that all off, there are also additional types of cards that you can play. Like there's the spy, where it's like, I know Naveen picked up the 5. I need the 5. So I can play that spy card and force Naveen to play the 5 that he picked up onto my pile. So stuff like that. It's really interesting.
Cool.
You know, it's a very simple concept, but just the different mechanisms, the sum of its parts, the whole.
Yeah.
I found it to be really interesting, and I played it now at 2 and at 3 players, and both player counts were very interesting for me. And even in the last gameplay that we played, we were always wondering, like, well, what if you can't find the ones? Or, you could be in a position where you just don't find the numbers that you need.
Right.
But there are just so many other tools at your disposal and so many other ways to score that it's funny, the player who was in that position actually won the game. So it's a very interesting one.
I'll have to look this one up because I can't even picture it, but it sounds really interesting. And I love that it's a card game in a small box because in a world where we have so many big boxes coming out every day,
shelf space is so limited.
Shelf space is limited, precious. So I love finding like little card games that are interesting and they don't take up that much space.
Yeah, over time. It also is not that long, and it has beautiful artwork. So
awesome.
Definitely, somebody recommended it to Naveen when he went to the last Strategicon, which is funny, and I wasn't there, so he came home and was like, you have to try this game.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm kind of bummed that I missed this one at Gen Con, but I will definitely pick it up and
we can bring it to Strategicon.
Please do.
Yeah, that was my second game. That's called Inheritors.
Cool. So I have recently jumped back onto this Terra Mystica kick. Are you a Terra Mystica fan?
I am a Gaia Project fan. To be completely honest,
fair.
but I did like Terra Mystica first.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I can't tell you if I'm a Gaia Project fan or not.
Okay.
Because I only played it once, and it was like way back in the day. And at that point, I was playing like Terra Mystica a lot, and I was like, "This is cool." So I think I was still kind of like new to heavy games. But actually, Jennifer and Bruce taught it to me at some point.
Nice.
This is like way back in the day. So I've only played Gaia Project once, but I kind of now want to revisit that one as well.
Yeah.
But in anticipation for Age of Innovation, I played Terra Nova recently. Did you guys ever get a chance to play that one?
No, we actually have it. I've been meaning to play it, but it's just not one that we've gotten to yet.
Okay, cool. So Clay from Capstone sent me Terra Nova at some point, and it's just kind of like I have this shelf of games of like review copy games that I have, that I pull from here and there. And I've had this one for a while, and I just haven't gotten around to playing it. And so I was like, let me see what this game's all about. And it's really cool. So this is basically, this is Terra Nova. It came out in 2022. It's designed by Andreas Fall, and it's from Capstone Games. I think there's a German edition from Cosmos. And Andreas is not like one of the original Terra Mystica designers either. This is someone new.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And I ended up playing Terra Nova the day after I recorded the last episode of the BGG podcast, which I had to record a week before Gen Con because of traveling and everything. So anyways, I played Terra Nova like right after I recorded because I was like thinking about Age of Innovation, but I didn't have it yet. And I was just craving something Terra Mystica. And it's a really, really excellent, like, introductory version of Terra Mystica. And I say introductory, but I will definitely say, like, I would be happy to play this version anytime. If there's like, if my audience is somebody who's like not up for something super heavy like Terra Mystica, or if we only have like an hour and a half, because yes, this can be played in an hour and a half. And it's like, it's still like, it gives you all the Terra Mystica feels, but in a shorter and less like mentally taxing experience. So it's basically like a watered down Terra Mystica. Like there are no cult tracks. There are only like 2 resources, and like money is the main resource, but you still have the power. It's just like a little bit. It's a toned down version of some of your power cycling options that you have in Terra Mystica and Gaia Project. And honestly, like if you're a heavy gamer, I mean, if you're playing Terra Mystica, you're probably like heavy games. But some people might find it to be a bit boring, the power cycling options in this version. But otherwise, like it has like I think 10 different asymmetric factions that are new.
Ooh, I love that.
You still have all those like awesome strategic choices and player interaction, like building and upgrading on the board. It also has, I haven't played it with 2 players yet, but like it has a second, the game board is double-sided, so there's a special map for lower player counts.
Oh.
And I don't know, again, like I thought that was really, it was like really well done. And like for me, like Matt, my partner, he's not like a super heavy gamer. Like if I taught him Terra Mystica, he's never played it, by the way. If I taught him Terra Mystica, he would understand it, but I don't think he would enjoy it because there's so much going on. But if I instead say, here's Terra Nova, like then I can get him into like the core mechanisms of Terra Mystica in a shorter, easier to digest package. And then later down the line, be like, yo, here's Terra Mystica, you know?
That's what I was going to ask, actually. Like, does this game fit well for somebody who you don't want to just throw into a game like Terra Mystica?
100%.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, I was like really impressed, and like the fact that like I hadn't played at the time that I played Terra Nova, I haven't played Terra Mystica in years, and I was just like all those feelings came back, like oh I love this. Oh, you're competing over those round bonus tiles, and like oh I want to build next to this person. Oh, that person just blocked me. Like, it's like it has all of those feels, but in it just a slightly watered down, like much shorter playing time game that like, yes, will be great for people who are more in that medium weight range of playing games and everything. Or somebody who might be interested in Terra Mystica, but is intimidated by it, start with Terra Nova. But again, like I think even as someone who loves heavy games like you and I, like I personally would be happy to play this version anytime,
That's great.
You got like an hour and a half at the end of a game night, but you don't want to like just play a filler game like Terra Nova,
Yeah.
So, so you should check that out. You and Naveen should check that out.
It is also on our shelf. We just need to choose it one day.
I know how that goes. But I also wanted to briefly mention Age of Innovation, because I did, like I said, we don't get a chance to play a lot of games at Gen Con, but I did get to play Age of Innovation.
You played it.
I love it. I love it.
You do?
It's so good.
Oh my gosh.
Monique, it is so good. Like, yeah, it is so good. Like,
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's so exciting.
Yeah. I'm like, this is something that just, again, rejuvenated my love of like the whole Terra Mystica, Gaia Project universe, like all these games. And I forgot how much I like love them and how good they are. I literally like it was so cool because I don't know how much you know about it, but there's like all this variability with how you set up your faction, because you have different faction tiles that you then will pair up randomly with one of the 7 landscape tiles. And then there's a draft for that. So you're always going to have these like different combinations of like how your faction is as you're playing the game, which is really
gosh, I
cool.
love that.
Yeah, it's so awesome. And I swear, like after, you do your initial building placement, like they used to be called dwellings. Now they're called workshops. I even like what they did. Like, it's not like super thematic or anything, but like I like that, like the direction they pushed it in. Like there's a new resource where you have to get these books so you can get these innovation tiles, which are awesome. And they also will help your faction be more asymmetric and more interesting.
Oh, nice.
Cool abilities. And those kind of like you play with a random set of those. And like that's going to change up every game. But like literally after I placed my 2 workshops at the beginning of the game, I was just like, well, I lost this game. Like I was just like, I wasn't next to anyone. Like I had no neighbors. And like you get the discount when you build that second, when you upgrade to that second building if you're next to people. And I'm like, crap, like I messed up already. But I didn't want to like do a backseas. I'm like, I'm just gonna like go with it. And then I just like literally like one thing I love about this game is that like every round you have that round scoring tile and like the bonus you could get at the end of the round. And you're like, I just feel like every round I'm just trying to say like, how can I make the most of this round and play as optimally as possible and like just maximize my points somehow. And it's like a little puzzle each round to try to just do your best. And I love it. It's so hard for me, but it's like so challenging in an exciting way where my heart's racing a little bit like, oh, like, what am I going to do? And then long story short, story short, I ended up winning the game. 5-player game.
Oh my gosh, I was going to ask. I was thinking that would have been the best thing ever.
Yes. I can never play again because I'm undefeated at Age of Innovation.
Nice. Did you bring a mic with you and just like throw it to the ground?
I virtually did a mic drop. Yeah. But yeah, I ended up getting some like, I don't remember if it was an innovation tile or a competency tile, but I had something that let me score points at the end of every round for whichever one of my science track markers was furthest behind. So I just kind of like leaned into that and I was like, well, there are other benefits of being up on these tracks. So I'm just going to kind of do anything I can to push myself up these tracks. And I like had a little engine going. And then I ended up winning, I think 3 of the 4 tracks I ended up being highest on. So that I scored that at the end of the game. Ooh. Yeah, like it just... I felt like I was trailing the whole game, but I just like picked it up and it was really exciting and I can't wait to play this game more. I think you're going to love it too.
That's so exciting. That's one of the games that I was really looking forward to from this year. So, and I absolutely adore asymmetry in games. And I think that's something that Terra Mystica, the whole sort of series does really well.
Yeah.
So the fact that it hits it even harder in this version of the game and the fact that you can feel like you're losing for so much of the game and then pull a win out in the end. I think that's what I feel like that's a part of what makes a good game, right? There are just so many ways to win.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I don't know. So when you get to play it, I'll be curious to hear your thoughts because as someone who prefers Gaia Project, it's a new and improved Terra Mystica. I think maybe it borrowed some things from Gaia Project, but I feel like I've heard one friend of mine say they still preferred how the tracks work in Gaia Project.
Okay. So in Age of Innovation, does it have tech tracks?
Yes.
It does.
Yeah. So you have the science tracks, which are kind of like the cult tracks, but it's like a better version of what the cult tracks did.
Okay. So when you advance on those tracks, it makes like an action or something that you do better?
No.
Okay, so that's why I think Project.
That's why I think it's not like Gaia Project.
In more like Terra Mystica.
Yeah, I think like when you get to certain spaces, like you'll get little power bonuses, and then I think you get more income or something. I'm trying to picture the tracks now, but yeah, it's not exactly like now I can do this action more efficiently or differently.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is so fascinating. I just knowing how we are, my partner Naveen and I, whenever we end up playing Age of Innovation, I feel like we're going to end up playing literally all the other games. We're going to go to Terra Mystica, Terra Nova, just to see, just to see how does everything differ, Yeah.
And I never actually played that Merchants of the Seas expansion for Terra Mystica. They came out in 2019 at Essen. And like, so I'm definitely going to be down to kind of like revisit Terra Mystica and like try some of that because I never played it. And I heard it was actually, I feel like that just went under a lot of people's radars. Like there's not a whole lot of content out there on the Merchants of the Seas expansion because I was like curious. But the couple people I know who played it said it's really good.
I think you have to be like really deep into Terra Mystica. I feel like those are the people who I know who have played the expansions.
Yeah. Well, again, Age of Innovation. Oh, love it. Love it. I cannot wait to play it more. Like and now like again like you, I want to kind of like revisit Gaia Project.
Yeah.
Now that I have such a different perspective on games than I did when I played it initially.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, and then like one last thing, I just want to give a quick shout out. One more quick mention of another game that I played recently, and this is going to be for all the solo players out there or anybody who's like even like remotely interested in trying a solo game. So after I recorded the last episode 23 with Rob Oren, he mentioned this game called Veilwraith, and I had to look it up because I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. And it's a game designed by Tristan Hall from a small, I think UK-based publishing company called Hall or Nothing Productions. And I started watching some videos and I was like, oh, this looks cool. And they were super nice to send me a copy of it, which actually arrived by the time I got back from Indy.
Oh,
and
nice.
When I was laying in the bed sick, I was like, oh, I'm going to try to like play this game in bed. And I set it up and then I'd be like exhausted and like fall asleep. And then I would like get some energy, read the rules, then kind of like take a break. But eventually I played it and I thought it was really cool. It's this like solo fantasy card game and it's set in a world where it's like basically the end of the world. And it's designed to kind of be played as a campaign, but I think you can kind of play it as individual scenarios if you want, or they're called vignettes. And you're basically on a quest to find these 5 keys and you have to defeat any foes, which are like boss baddies. And then you have to like defeat this portal, like you're jumping through this portal. But the cool thing about it is that each round you're going to reveal a card from this threat deck, which you build during setup. And that's where the keys are kind of seated in there. So you're trying to like get through all these different threats and find these keys and like earn them. And to kind of deal with these threats, you have this deck of memory cards, but you don't start with any cards in hand. I don't think. I'm trying to recall. But yeah, I don't think you start with any cards. So you like literally each turn just draw one of these memory cards, which are cool and helpful things. But the main engine of the game is you have these 3 action cards slotted. Think like Arc Nova, kind of. Like, or Civ, A New Dawn, where you have your action cards in these slots. But the difference is you have, instead of having like hard printed slots, you have tokens. So there's a 1 token, a 2 token, a 3 token. And then the different action cards are Explore, Fight, Influence. So one of them during setup, they're all like set under these. And that's kind of like the strength of that action. But then you can do this thing once per round where you tilt a card, meaning you can't use it, but you just tilt it. And now you can add a +1 like power up token to it. So now whatever slot it's in, it's +1. And you can, so you're having this choice of like, what cards do you want to start like leveling up? And then when you can only use one of those cards, like fully exhaust it, rotate it 90 degrees once per round. So you could either, some of the threats that you encounter, you need to spend Explore action points. Some you need to do Fight. Some you need to do Influence. So you're kind of managing these action cards because after you use one, again, like Arc Nova, since a lot of people know that, probably more than Civ A New Dawn, but like after you use it, you will then drop it down to the lowest slot and then shift everything else right. And if you happen to use any of those power up tokens, they're temporary. So they're kind of gone. So you're doing this whole thing where you're like tilting cards to like build them up, to use them. And it's very like puzzly and challenging, but it's really, really cool. I enjoyed it a lot. It's kind of like easy to learn. Like, again, you're like trying to manage your resources and deciding when to tilt certain cards, when to use them so that you bump up and strengthen other cards. And you're trying to like get these keys. And to get a key, you need to have a certain strength of influence. So you're like trying to get those. And then when you unlock those, you get other abilities. And it's really cool. And then like if you're playing through as a campaign, every time you pass through a vignette, like or succeed at a vignette, you get to upgrade your memory deck. So you get more powerful cards in your deck. And it's got this like awesome, evocative, monochromatic artwork. Definitely not for kids because it's a little risque.
It's a little scary? Oh, risque?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
There's some skin shown here and there.
Okay.
It might be also a little scary, actually, because it's kind of a darker,
like a dark fantasy.
Dark fantasy, yeah.
Okay.
But it's like really, really cool art. So anyway, I wanted to bring it up also because they have a prequel to it called Kreel Manor, which is coming out in 2024. And it's on Kickstarter till the end of August 2023, just mentioning the year because I don't know when people are going to be listening to this. But it kind of builds upon the system and does some new things with it. And it takes place in like before the world ends. So all the art is colored and in the same style as Veilwraith. But anyways, it's like it's a pretty cool solo game. And I would definitely say it would be a good one to start with if you're like new to solo games and kind of curious to try one if you like fantasy themed games.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is that really sounds interesting. I like that action efficiency. It's almost like action efficiency mechanism. I really love that about Arc Nova. And I've never played the Civ game, but I know that's sort of like where it comes from, I think.
Exactly, yeah.
But I also just started playing solo games. I'm very interested in this one now. How long does it play?
Oh, I mean, I was playing it sickly from bed, so I was kind of slow getting through it, but I think that like I could have probably played that vignette if I'm healthy, and now that I've played through a game probably in like 30-45 minutes.
That's a really nice and I fits it nice.
I felt like I was gonna like win for a second, but then I got to like the foe and it was like it was hard. I started getting because like if you leave threats out and don't take care of them, they start hitting at your spirit, which you have like a dial of exactly. So I ended up getting crushed. But I'm like, I can do it. Like, but I was excited. I'm like, I can come back to this and I'm like, I understand a little better. Yeah. And like how to manage my cards. And also the memory cards can like kind of buff up some of your actions or give you other abilities.
That's cool.
I think you should check this one out. Yeah. Hit these guys up too. Because I think you will enjoy it.
That's awesome. Thank you for that recommendation.
Yeah. Anyway, that is Veilwraith, little bonus fresh play. And the new version is called, or the prequel is called Kreel Manor. So I'm very excited about it. I backed it. I was like, I don't need more games, but I like this system, so I did back it.
That's cool.
But anyway, we are here to talk about oldies but goodies, not new games, Monique.
Yes. I know. What are we doing? What's going on?
And now a word from our sponsor. We made it! The humble journey that started a decade ago in Kansas City, then found itself on the pampas of Argentina, ends in spectacular fashion in the hills of New Zealand. In Great Western Trail, New Zealand, you'll build outposts throughout New Zealand, hire workers to help you find the best sheep and shear the finest wool off of them, and of course, hire a dog to herd them all. Once you've made it to Wellington, put your sheep on ships bound to your warehouses and then to trading posts all over the world. With the release of Great Western Trail New Zealand, which is now available at your friendly local game store, we've reached the end of the Great Western Trail trilogy. As it's often said, when one trail ends, another one begins. Are there more adventures in the cards? Maybe a railway to bring us to new herds, towns, or ports we haven't explored? Or workers and buildings just about to be discovered? Keep an eye out, ranchers. You never know when another adventure will begin. Well, let's jump right into it. I'm very curious to hear which games you picked and if we have any crossovers.
Me too. I'm excited. This is one of my favorite topics. I just wanted to reiterate that. This is such a fun, it's really fun just finding older games and digging through libraries to play them and stuff.
Yes, and I will say also, like when I was originally kind of sending details for this to Monique, I was like, we picked 10 plus years ago, games that came out in 10 plus years ago, or more than 10 plus years ago. But I was like, that's kind of like newer. So then at the last minute, I was like, let's do 15 plus. And even still, like, yeah, I was just trying to like dig back really far. So my list is going to be ordered actually from newest to oldest.
Oh, really? Mine's the other way around.
Oh! That's funny. So this will be very interesting.
Yeah.
Do you have any like honorable mentions you wanted to drop? Like anything?
I guess I do, because I was trying to curate the list, but a couple of the games I hadn't played very recently, so I didn't want to add them to the list and then not really be able to describe them in full detail.
Yeah.
So I guess I should just mention this because it almost made the list. It is a game. Sorry, I'm just trying to figure out when it came out now, because this game actually is getting reprinted. So it is a bit cheating. But it was originally published in the year 2000, which cannot believe is 23 years ago now. And it's called The Princes of Florence. This is it's getting republished this year, and actually it has new artwork on the box and such by WizKids now, I think.
Yes.
But I think originally it was published by Aliyah, and it's designed by Wolfgang Kramer, Richard Ulrich, and Jens, I think Christopher Ulrich. And the one thing that I know about this game that I can explain is it has an auction. You have polyomino tiles. You're trying to fill your board with them. But the auction itself is really interesting because you can only auction out one specific type of piece. And there's going to be stuff like parks and
forests.
I'm forgetting all the different things that
forests and lakes.
Yes, forests and lakes. Thank you, because everybody has these profession cards that you want to have whatever the combination of stuff on the profession card, whether it's a certain type of building / these parks and stuff that you want on your player board in order to score them. But only one person can win that tile per round. It's really interesting.
I'm laughing over here. I don't know if you noticed, because this is actually on my list.
Oh no.
No,
it's on your list.
It's totally great, because when you were like 2000 and you were like, there's a reprint, and I'm like, oh, maybe there's some other game from 2000. But yeah, I'll just kind of just chime in since you brought it up.
Yes, please.
Yeah, so back in like 2021, my good friend Derek, he's part of the Heavy Cardboard crew. He kind of discovered I was newer to gaming and realized I hadn't played a lot of classic Euros. So he like made it his personal quest to teach me as many classics as he could when we were at this gaming event together.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So he taught, and don't say anything if it's on your list, because I'm not going to go into detail, but he taught me Macau, Goa, St. Petersburg, and Princess of Florence. And
nice.
I thought they were all great, number one, but like Princess of Florence, I was just like, this is like really, really cool. Like you have this like, again, auction. I love auction games. And then like the choice of which thing to auction, because you're only auctioning one thing. So it's like you were saying, like forest, lakes, parks maybe is the other one.
Yeah, there's like the jester, right?
Yeah,
that's
you
like
could get the jester. The jesters are going to help you score your like profession cards more like with higher points. It's like kind of a little engine building thing. Then you have these builders. You can auction off to get a builder. And if you have a builder, if you have one builder, it makes the cost of buying a building a lot cheaper, because usually buying a building is 700 florins.
Yes.
And then if you have a builder, it's only 300. And then if you have two builders, you can now put buildings adjacent to each other in your little neighborhood board.
That's right.
Yeah, because you can't usually build buildings adjacent to each other. Yeah. So you need the second builder to be able to do that. And then on top of that, if you have a third builder, all your buildings are free. So like they're cool. And then the other thing that's auctioned off is prestige cards, which are like basically end of game scoring objectives that are private. Which is really cool. And you get to draw 5 cards, choose one. Like anytime you're drawing cards in this game, you get to draw 5, choose one, which is awesome because you have like a lot of choices. But yeah, you did the auction. And then every player is going to get to start an auction and auction something off, but it has to be something different. So if Monique auctioned off jesters, I can't pick jesters if I'm next to start an auction. I have to pick something else. And then you each take 2 actions on your turn, and you can buy buildings. And when you do, you're going to place them on your little player board. Again, you can't touch buildings against other buildings unless you have the second builder also. And then you can also buy more character cards, like these profession cards. You can buy these bonus cards that'll help them score better. You can buy these things called freedoms, which are also something else that's going to help you score these character cards better.
That's right.
It's really, really good. And WizKids hooked me up with the new version.
Nice.
At Gen Con, and I actually I haven't been able to like really play games because I've been sick. But like Matt played it with me and he loved it. And we just played a 2-player game. And
really?
It was still fun with 2 players. Like the auction is definitely going to be like more interesting with more players. I think it's usually like best at 4 or 5 players. But it was still like really good, and it was like a tight competitive game. And it's beautiful. The new version is really beautiful.
Yeah, I was wondering that because we actually have the older copy of the game on our shelf, and we didn't play it for so long. Because that's another reason why we really love finding older gems, is because the box cover for a lot of these games it doesn't really doesn't really tell you, like what this experience is going to be like.
Right.
And that was particularly true for the version of Princess of Florence we have. But we went to actually a Strategicon, and 2 friends of ours, David and Nate, they were like, "You've never played this? Like, we got to play it." And they taught it to us, and we were just so shocked. But you're right, at higher player counts, the auction does seem more interesting because you can only actually purchase one thing per round. So it's not like you can buy out the whole thing. So you have to be very selective about what you are going to hold out for. And the players are the ones who are actually putting things up for auction. So you have to wait for somebody to put up the item that you want to buy. It's really interesting.
And imagine the mind games of playing this with 2 players, because like whoever doesn't like, so you're like upbidding someone for something, and maybe you're doing it to do something that you don't really want, hoping that they'll take the bait and like upbid you, and then all of a sudden they pay like $600, $700 for something, and then you're like, okay, cool, now I can buy anything else for $300.
Right.
Like, so I'm not mad at that the 2-player version. I thought it was really good, and it was cool. Like, again, Matt like loved the game. He's like, you could tell he was like getting into it.
Nice.
Yeah. And then like the one other thing that's cool with this new version is that there's a solo mode, which I haven't tried yet, but there's like an Automa deck to play it solo. It also includes the Muse and the Princess expansion, which adds these like 6 character cards. And I don't think I played with that. I don't remember actually the first time I played this, if I'd played with the expansion or not, but that's all included in the new WizKids version. And then on top of that, there's this cooperative building expansion, which it's not like you and I are playing together on the same team, but we can the opposite side of your player board, like everybody connects so that you're kind of like neighbors with other players. Your player board that you're placing the tiles on are touching your opponents. And so like on my turn, if I go to build, I could be like, if I want to build on the border of my neighborhood and your neighborhood, Monique, I could be like, hey, can you pay such and such, pay me such and such to, I don't remember if it's you pay me or you pay part of the building cost, because it's like, it's my action, but I'm building a building that's going to be on both of our boards so that both of us technically have access to that building. So I was like, this sounds neat. I'm very curious to kind of like try that, because there's like some negotiation with how you place buildings and everything.
That's cool.
But yeah, I'm glad. Sorry to like go on a tangent, but I had to tell you that like, this game is. I really like this game, and I had been wanting it for ever since the first time I played it. But I didn't like love the look of the like I think they did a
the red
reprint
box.
once. Yeah, I actually I liked I liked the original one better than the one that they did when they reprinted it years ago.
Oh, okay.
Because there were like 2 versions. But anyway, I'm just happy that it's more accessible. And this new version is really good looking.
Yeah.
The other cool thing is like on the player boards, instead of just princes of Florence, you can flip it over and have a princess of Florence.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So every single player board can be flipped to a female side if you would like to play with a female.
That's awesome.
And then there's one other like random thing that I kind of found when I was like looking into like the designers of this game and everything. One of them, so almost everybody knows Wolfgang Kramer and Richard Ulrich, but Jans Christopher Ulrich, I was like, I didn't really know, what he had done. So I clicked on him on BGG and I found out that he and Richard Ulrich co-designed a game back in the early 90s called like De Oculis. And it was basically a trivia game all about environmental protection. So it says in like, to quote, it's like guides players in an original and informative way through the everyday world of the environment and helps players learn more about the essential protection of our environment as they game. I was like, how cool is that?
Cool. Yeah, that is so endearing.
Yeah, and it was in the 90s. It was in the 90s. So I thought that was just a cool random fun fact.
Yeah, that's really cool.
But anyways, what other honorable mentions did you have?
I had one other one. Well, I tried to pick games that, because we talk a lot about older games, I guess, on our channel. So I tried to pick games that we don't talk about a whole lot, even though I still added some. But one of the honorable mentions is actually one that you mentioned. It's Goa.
Oh, nice!
Goa's got to be maybe one of our all-time favorite games from 15 or more years ago. I don't actually remember when that game was published, but that was I think the first heavy game that I'd ever played, and I didn't know it was heavy until I played it. And like I ended the session, my brain was sweating. It doesn't look like much, the game it has a large auction. The first half is like this big auction where you're auctioning off tiles, and then the other part of it is everybody takes player turns, and you're basically just trying to push your action cubes down your board to score points. But you're also growing crops because it's like Portuguese traders in India. Goa's a place in India. So yeah, that one's a really, really fascinating one. You've played it?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay.
I think I've only played it once, maybe twice, and I loved it also.
Yeah.
But it's a cool game. And I think now that you're mentioning it, I do remember that you guys love it.
Yeah. Naveen in particular. He used to teach that game at Strategicon, actually.
I think I remember that. Yeah, I kind of just I have like just 4 that I'm not even going to like talk about much. But like I was just doing a check at some point to see like, like what else do I know that was like, came out back then. And one of the games is Tichu, which came out in 91, but like I have only played Tichu like once, and then I like loved it and I never got back to it, and it's something that I would like to kind of explore more. So that's part of the reason.
Game,
yeah,
right?
It's a card game.
Oh, okay,
it's like a partner climbing shedding game.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I definitely want to like revisit that at some point, because I remember just like being like, oh, I'm buying this, I got the app, and then I just never kind of got back into it. But I know a lot of people who absolutely love it. So
that's awesome.
And then just on that 15-year mark, Battlestar Galactica came out in 2008.
What?
Yeah, Battlestar Galactica came out in 2008, and that's like one of my favorites. So I just want to quick give that one a shout out.
Is that the one that has the hidden trader? Okay,
yeah,
okay.
like
I've played that one.
People might be Cylons. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Matt loves sci-fi shows, and at some point was like, oh, you got to watch this show. And I was like, fine. And then I ended up loving it. It has like the coolest soundtrack if you like drums like I do.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, the show actually, and we watched the newer version of the show because I think the original show was like there's like an older version of it.
Oh, okay.
And then Hansa Teutonica almost made the cut but it was 2009.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, but I was like, that still feels like so classic and old, and it's such a great game.
Oh yeah, I cannot believe. Wow, 2009. That would have made the original cut,
right?
The 10
exactly. But when I changed it from 10 years, I was like, oh, I can't say
that is such a good game. Wow.
Yeah. And then I said Twilight Struggle also, which came out in 2005.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, just because it's like I love card-driven games, and that was like,
yes,
it's like
very intense.
Yeah, and it influenced so many other great card-driven games that are out, and it's just a great game. Very intense, very intense.
Yeah.
All right,
awesome.
So let's jump to your number 5.
All right. So my number 5 is a game that was released in 1992. Wow. There's so many iterations of this game now. It's designed by Rainer Knizia. I think maybe the original publisher is Hansa. I don't know now, but it's called Modern Art.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, it's a game for 3 to 5 players because in this game, this is an auction game, like almost purely. But in this game, you're basically auctioning off different pieces of modern art. And so there are modern artists. I don't know if the different versions of the game have different types of art, but in any case, the one that we have is very beautiful. Obviously very beautiful cards. And on your turn, you're basically going to choose one of the cards from your hand and you're going to auction it off. And on the card, it tells you what type of auction you have to do. There are 5 different types of auctions, and they can range from like a pure auction where everybody just starts screaming out how much they're willing to pay for this card, or a 1-round auction, or a blind auction, stuff like that. And basically, at the end of the round, you're going to pay out only the top 3 artists who sold. So you could spend all your money on some artist's piece of work and not get any money back for it. But the thing that I found to be most interesting is, say an artist makes it to the top 3 artists in the first round. And so if they were the one who sold the most, they get, I believe, 30. It's like 30, 20, and 10. But they don't sell anything in the next round. But they sell more again in the third round. It's cumulative. So now, say for example, if that artist sold and you get paid 30 for each of their artwork in the first round, and they sold again in the third round, and they sold everything for 10, then now in the third round, everybody gets 40 for each of the pieces of art that they purchased. So it's really fascinating. I chose this game because I'm not a super big on auction mechanics. It's just so much math. You really have to do the math in auction games in order to win. You need to make sure that you are broke. Paying less. Yeah. And Naveen, my partner, is really good at that. He just knows like, well, I'm paying this much for it. I'm not going to pay more than that because I'm not going to get more. You know what I mean? Like you have to do that math in your head. But modern art is just so fascinating because of the fact that meta game of like, oh, this artist has sold so many pieces already in this round. What valuation am I going to give the rest of the cards in my hand? Or the round ends as soon as I believe a 5th piece of art is being prepared to be auctioned off. The round ends immediately. And just the timing of that is really fascinating. And so that's got to be probably my favorite auction game. And the fact that it was released in 1992 is wild.
Yeah. I love modern art as well. And it almost made my list.
Okay.
But I don't know if it's that, it's always hard to kind of compare. And I don't know what my favorite auction game is. That's something like I'll have to give some thought to at some point and talk about it on this podcast.
Yeah.
This was something that like when we moved into our current place, Jennifer actually gave me as a housewarming gift, modern art, the version that's like a white box with like, there's like an orange or something.
Oh, I think that's the version that we have. Simon? I think it's
I think it's Simon. Yeah.
That's very sweet of Jennifer, by the way.
Yes, it was super sweet. She's always trying to like make sure I stay, an Omni gamer and I'm educated on things. She knew I had never played it, so she's like, "I'm gonna give you modern art."
That's so nice.
So that was, but yeah, every time I play it, it's a hit. I don't play it as often. Like Rainer Knizia is just great. Especially at auction stuff. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
But yeah, that one almost made my list. But so you started at 1992 and I did the opposite. So I started with my most modern game on the list. And that is Santiago. So Santiago is a game that came out in 2003, designed by Claudia Helly and Roman Pellick. And it's the version I have is from Amigo Games, but they're supposed to, and I had to like track it down and print English rules for my copy and everything like that. And I forget like how this game even fell onto my radar. I want to say it was something like heavy cardboard related. That I saw either they were playing it or somebody was talking about it on an episode. I don't really remember. But anyway, I'm really glad that I discovered it because it's an awesome game. And in last year, I think at Essen, this publishing company called Treffel released a new version. But I have not seen it anywhere in the US, so I don't even know if people have it or what, but hopefully it's something that's coming because I think like a lot of people would really love this game. It plays with 3 to 5 players. It has auction. It has an auction like bidding phase. There's a bribing aspect to it, and there's like some area majority scoring. So basically the main board, like we are kind of working in, I guess like a plantation or something like that. And each round we auction off these different crop tiles. So there might be like bananas, potatoes, green beans, whatever. I think there are like 5 different types. And so we flip them over randomly, a certain amount based on the player count. And then we go around and we bid for basically initiative to take one and place it on the board. So whoever bids the highest is going to get to pick first. And then they'll place it on the board. And then the second highest will pick which one they want, so on and so forth. And the way the scoring works, so throughout the game, you're going to be putting these tiles out on the board. And you're going to be trying to, in most cases, trying to place like similar type crop tiles next to each other. And then you want to have more of your ownership cubes on them. So if I have a group of, let's say, 5 banana tiles that are orthogonally adjacent to each other, touching, and like I happen to have 5 of my ownership cubes kind of spread on these 5 tiles, I'm going to get 25 points or $25. It's a money equals points kind of game at the end of the game because of that. But maybe, Monique, you had on the same like plot of banana tiles, you had 2 of your ownership cubes. So you would get 2 times 5 because there are 5 banana tiles. So you would get $10. I would get 25. So you're constantly trying to build out these tiles so that you're making groups of crops that you're kind of involved with bigger for scoring bigger. But then you also want to make sure you have more ownership cubes on them. And some of the tiles will have space for you to put 2 of your ownership tiles when you build it. And some of them only have 1. And so the other thing is, since these are crops in a field, they need to be watered to not dry out. So,
of course.
Of course. So at the beginning of the game, you randomly put out this like blue tube that's like the start of your like irrigation. And you every round are going to place at least one of these blue sticks, which is like water that's going to water 2 or maybe 2 or 4 crops that it's adjacent to. So picture like a grid and you're putting these blue sticks in between the crop tiles. So who gets to pick where the water goes, Monique? Well, that is the canal overseer. So whoever bid the lowest amount or passed first during the auction gets to be the canal overseer for the round. And you, the other players, are going to bribe them to put the water where you want it so that you can make sure your crops are wet. Because if your crops don't have water, remember I told you some of the tiles will have 2 ownership cubes? If it's not watered, one of your ownership cubes is going to come off. If next round it's not watered, another one of your ownership cubes comes off. And maybe you have no ownership cubes. And then if it's still not watered, it's going to flip over and dry. So now it's not contributing to the scoring. So there's this whole thing where you are thinking about strategically when you want to be the canal overseer, because your money is hidden in this game too. So you never know how broke people are. But like then, some people will get desperate and be like, oh no, I need to make sure this area is watered. I will pay 5 to put it there. And maybe you're like kind of working with me because like if the canal overseer puts it there, it's helping you too. So our bribes kind of go in together. And you're like, I'll pay 3. So now they're getting 8 if they do it. And the thing is, the canal overseer could just say, screw you guys. I'm going to pay 8 to the bank instead, and I'm going to put it wherever I want. So they could either take one of the bribes, or they could pay, I forget if it was the lowest bribe or the highest bribe, to probably the highest.
That is powerful.
To then put it wherever they want. And everybody starts the game with one like emergency water stick. So each round, there's the potential for a player can play that. And that's like a Hail Mary. You only get one. You never get it back. So you do have a potential lifeline, but that kind of goes in turn order. So if like maybe I needed to use my emergency water stick this time, but like Naveen was before me and he decided to use his, now I can't because only one person can do that around.
Oh, that is interesting.
So it's like a really simple game. I've played it with non-gamer friends, gamer friends, and every time it's just so fun and everybody ends up loving it. And again, you're like number one, you have this auction phase. And then after you auction and place these tiles, now you're like, oh shoot, how are we going to get water to them? So then you got to bribe, start doing the bribing. There's a lot of fun table talk and player interaction. And at the end of the game, whoever has the most money scores. So you'll get paid out for all of your ownership tiles based on the size of the groups they're in.
Oh my gosh, that's political.
Yes, it's really funny.
Drama.
Yeah, it's really funny that you say that because the first time we played this game with our good friends Cassie and Jake, it was their first time playing. Matt and I had played it before, and literally during the first auction, we got into this like 20-minute debate on like where the first tile was going to be placed. Like, well, no, if I take the bananas and put them there, you have to tell me you're going to take the other bananas and put them there. Well, why should I do that unless blah, 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 blah? Well, then we could co-bribe the canal overseer. It just like, it felt like we were in a like agenda phase for TI4, like talking like voting on a law or something. And it's like, no, we're just putting out some crop tiles, guys. But anyway, it's super fun. Have you ever played it before?
I have not, but that sounds really interesting. Are you allowed to bluff? Like, can I bid money I don't have?
No, I don't think you can bid money you don't have, because I don't think there are any loans in this game. Yeah,
because there would have to be a penalty, right?
Yeah, I think you're forced to pass, because it's not like something where you can lose victory points to take money.
Okay, that's good.
But yeah, so you could kind of get caught like that too.
Yeah.
And get outbid. But at that point, like you pass early and try to be the canal overseer and try to make money from bribes,
And have all the power.
Yeah, and you do get like every round at the end of the round, there's some income also. Like I think like everybody gets $3 or something every round. So you're not going to be completely broke, but it's just like this super fun game. Every single time I've played it, not many people know about it. And I'm glad they made a new version of it, but hopefully that'll be available. Because I have not seen it. I knew there was a new version coming. I actually thought it was going to be not till this year. And I looked it up and it was like 2022. I was like, I haven't seen this anywhere. So hopefully it makes it around so people can actually get it. But yeah, Santiago, banger, absolute banger from 2003.
Nice. Well, it's interesting that you chose a game that has that sort of negotiation, because my game number 4 is like almost all negotiation. This is a game that was released in 1997. And like I was mentioning earlier, we just finished playing a bunch of Uwe Rosenberg games. And honestly, a lot of his games were released more than 15 years ago that are still really good. But I chose to include a game called Bohnanza.
Yeah!
So, have you played this one?
Yes! Beans!
It's beans. It is farming. I mean, not all of Uwe Rosenberg's games are farming themes. Like, a fair amount of them are not. But this one happens to be farming. I think it's published by Hansa. and it plays. Oh no, sorry. Amigo,
right?
And it plays 2 to 7 players, but you really want to get into like that 5-player range. The more the better, because in this game you are bean farming. All of the cards are these silly beans. You have red beans, chili beans. You have all sorts of beans, and they're all they've all been they're alive. Like they have faces and stuff. Like these are people beans, and each player has their own bean field that can hold at most 2 different types of beans. There are several versions of the game now. I know in the older versions you could purchase a third bean field, but I know there are editions now where you don't have access to that. But basically, you have a hand of bean cards, and you are not allowed to rearrange your hand. This is the game where you have to keep telling yourself, do not put down your hand. It has to stay in the same order, because on your turn, you are required to plant the rightmost, I believe, whatever the first slot is on your hand, into one of your bean fields. Now, your fields can only hold one type of field. You cannot mix blue beans with red beans or so. And if ever you have to play a card that you don't have a bean field for, you're forced to either sell or get rid of one of your fields, which is really not ideal. And then you can optionally play a second one. But then you draw, I believe, the top 2 cards from the deck, and you start negotiating with everybody around the table because some people want, the beans that you drew. Maybe you drew beans that you don't have the fields for. And the thing about these beans is on the card itself, it tells you how many coins you're going to get for selling them, depending on how many of those cards you actually have in your field. Some of them are more valuable than others because maybe there are only 3 of that card in the entire deck. Right? So it's this really hilarious game of you saying, okay, I'll take that blue bean off your hands if you give me this bean, or maybe you can just give people beans, and it's just this really silly theme. And it just gets really political for very strange reasons. Yeah.
With the silly bean art too.
Silly bean art. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to put this on my list, because if you look at that box, that's I don't know, it's pretty dated. It's very yellow with just this bean. I know the first time I saw it, I was like, I have no idea what I'm getting myself into if I were to play this game. But it's hilarious, and it can get really political quick.
So that's really funny. I love Bohnanza, and so that's an Uwe Rosenberg game I do love.
Yes.
I have not played it in forever, but it's something I feel like I always keep on my shelf.
Just in case you have that opportunity,
just in case. And something that's relevant to recently at Gen Con, I discovered there's a new version of Bohnanza called Dahlia, which is basically, I don't think any rules change, but it's basically Bohnanza with beautiful flower cards instead of beans. And Beth Sobel did the art.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I was like, I did not know this going into Gen Con.
Whoa.
It was just something, either somebody I bumped into had picked it up, and I was like, I didn't even know that existed. Wow. But yeah, so if you want to get this game, or if you already love this game, but maybe you're tired of looking at cartoon beans and you want to play it with some beautiful flower cards, I think it's called Dahlia. And I actually did end up bringing that back from Gen Con. I bought a copy of that.
So it's not they're not silly flowers. These are beautiful.
No, they're beautiful flowers.
Okay. That makes sense to me to retheme something like that, because I feel like we are going into an age of board gaming where artwork is absolutely a part of the experience.
Yeah.
And for some people, they want to be able to play with stuff that is more aesthetic rather than, these beans were drawn to be funny. It is a comedic decision, right?
And they're beans.
But for some people, But for some people, the flowers are probably going to speak to them more.
Yeah. And so that's what a great way to kind of, get this game into more people's households and get more people to try this awesome game that came out in would you say 1997 or something?
1997, yeah.
Crazy.
A long while ago.
But now I'm excited to revisit either Bohnanza or as Dahlia.
Dahlia.
I'll try to remember to bring this in my bag for Strategicon.
Okay. That's awesome. Well, that is my number 4. That's Bohnanza.
Awesome. And my number 4 was Princess of Florence, which we've already talked about. So I'm going to say we jump right to your number 3.
My number 3. So I actually have a few games on my list that were released in the same year, which makes me think for anybody who was playing board games in 1997, good on you. That was a good year. Okay.
That's awesome.
This is a game designed by Rainer Knizia, who probably rocked a lot of this time frame.
Yeah.
And it's published by Hansa for 2 to 4 players, and it's a game called Tigris and Euphrates.
Oh my goodness, that's my next one.
Oh, it is?
Yes.
Oh
yes.
my god. Do you want to describe it?
No, I don't. Because I haven't played it in a while. And actually, I haven't played it in a while. Like my thought is just like, I love this game.
Yes.
Abstract strategy, tile placement, kind of like with this like war game element to it. Like very elegant, simple actions, challenging decisions. I love the scoring system.
Yeah.
But yeah,
okay.
you go ahead if you played it more recently than me.
That pretty much encapsulates why I love this game so much, and why I think this game really it feels like a classic. You know, this really stands the test of time because there is so much tension in this game with very little really. Because in this game, everybody plays as a different faction, and we each have our own leader tiles. It's not by color; it's by symbol. So maybe I don't remember exactly what the animals are. Maybe I'm like, is there a bull?
One is like, I think there's like a bull or something. There's like one that looks like a bow and arrow or something. Okay. Yeah, everybody is a symbol, which is like
everybody's
different.
A symbol.
You're not like a color, but instead you have 4 different colors for your symbol.
Because there are 4 different types of leaders, and they are represented by the color. So each player has a set of these. It's like red, green, blue, and maybe yellow, like one of the other colors.
Black.
And so black.
Red, green, blue, and black. Yeah.
And black, yes. And so there is a board that has different spaces where on your turn, you're basically going to be placing out either one of your leaders or you're going to be putting out one of these tiles. Yeah. And the tiles are going to be the same colors of the leaders. The blue tiles can only be placed along the river. You know, it is called Tigris and Euphrates after all. And then all the other tiles can be placed anywhere else on the board. But while you're placing out these tiles, you're building out different, I think, civilizations, which are basically just blocks of orthogonally adjacent tiles with players' leaders.
Yes, like regions or something. Yeah.
Yeah. The catch is each grouping or each civilization can only have one of each type of leader. And so if I have my red leader in an area and somehow maybe Candice's red leader also gets attached to that area, either by somebody placing a tile that connects them or something like that.
Yeah.
We go into battle.
Yep.
And that's the part that's really tense because you are trying to gain points throughout the game, trying to be peaceful while trying to avoid these moments. But as soon as there's a possibility of you going into one of these battles, you need to be ready. And so in Tigris and Euphrates, the way that combat works is you have to be adjacent to temples. There are also these temples that are going to be placed out. And you also have to have temple tiles behind your screen because all of the tiles that you have are going to be kept secret behind the player screen.
Yeah.
And so when battle occurs, it's just basically who is adjacent to the most temples and who can also discard the most from their hand will get that one red point. Now, the other catch to this game is there are 4 different types of points, and they correspond to the different colors in the game. And so anytime somebody adds say, for example, I add a green tile to a civilization, whoever has the green leader in that civilization will get a green point.
Yeah.
Because there's only one of each type of leader in there. And then at the end of the game, the player with the most number of points in their lowest scoring color is going to be the winner. So you're also trying to balance all 4 of the different types of points. It's really tense.
Yeah.
There's so much tension in this neat little game, right? Well, it's quite a big game now, but
it's so good though.
It is so good. It's been re-implemented. The only thing it has been re-implemented by Yellow and Yangtze. Mm-hmm. Same designer, just he varied up some things to make it a little bit more I can think made it a little bit more streamlined. I want to say. Have you played Yellow and Yangtze?
I have not played Yellow and Yangtze yet.
Okay.
And also Phalanx just did a re-implementation of Yellow and Yangtze called HUANG. I think I think they had it on crowdfunding for GameFound, but it's also going to be out later this year.
Oh, we have. Okay. It was on crowdfunding this year.
I think it was on crowdfunding either earlier this year. I'm losing track of time. I think it was earlier this year, and I think it's going to be out around Essen or sometime in the 4th quarter of this year.
Oh, that's great.
So that's like a different, and I don't know exactly what all the differences are between that and Yellow and Yangtze.
Yes. I don't remember exactly, but I remember feeling like Yellow and Yangtze was a lot more streamlined. It basically, any parts of Tigris and Euphrates that I felt iffy about, they kind of fixed in Yellow and Yangtze and made it a little bit more strategic. It's still very tense. But Tigris and Euphrates, even if you don't play Yellow and Yangtze, Tigris and Euphrates stands on its own, 100%. It's very good.
Yeah, it's one of, I haven't played like Through the Desert or like all of the Reiner Knizia like abstract strategy games. I have played Samurai and Babylonia, and I liked them both a lot, but I don't know. There's just something that just pops for me more about Tigris and Euphrates, and I don't currently own it, but I actually just messaged someone the other night about trying to, because I really want, the first time I played it, it was with the I think the Mayfair edition, one of the older ones that has like the wooden castles and the cubes and everything. And I was like, I need this version of it.
That's cool.
So I've been trying to track down a copy because I know like it's a little easier to get is it Fantasy Flight or somebody or Z-Man? Sorry, Z-Man did Z-Man, the most modern version of it.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, now I definitely want to try Yellow and Yangtze also, and HUANG, and just kind of like see how they fare against Tigris and Euphrates. But
absolute beast of a game,
tense game for something that has such like simple actions, like like really really
tense.
good.
You never know. You got to watch your back at all times. It feels like,
and again, like the scoring system. I love games that do that, where it's like you're scoring multiple things and your end game score is whatever the one is that you got the least of.
Yes. So
like
you
Beer and Bread does that.
Yes. You cannot, it makes it so that you can't specialize.
Yeah.
Right? You cannot just put all your eggs in what you have to do everything.
Exactly. So, and that makes it even more challenging. So that's funny that like in our timelines here of you going from oldest to newest and me going from newest to oldest, that we both ended up at number 3 with Tigris and Euphrates.
Yeah, that is really interesting.
I'm now wondering if we have any other crossovers.
Well, I'm starting to get more recent, so
that's
our path
We're
convergence.
done.
We're done.
Okay, so I guess so I had the same number 3 as you. So then you go ahead and tell me your number 2.
My number 2?
Yeah.
Okay, well, my number 2 is, this is the last game that was released in 1997 from my list. I'm sure there are other bangers from that year, but this is the last one from my list. And it is designed by Stefan Dora. My version of the game is published by Eagle Gryphon, plays 3 to 6, and it's called For Sale. Have you played For Sale?
I've never played For Sale. I know.
Candice.
That is the proper reaction. I've never played For Sale. I have kind of like almost picked it up so many times because please bring it to Strategicon.
Yes,
we're just going to have like a vintage gaming table.
Yeah, definitely. Because okay, I'm really shocked. This is such a great game. So the version that I have of it is like the travel edition. So just so you know, anybody listening, there are different editions of the game. The travel edition has the entire game in this tiny, tiny box. And so this is a game that was my most traveled with game. Our version of it is all banged up now because we brought it everywhere. But this is basically another auction game, I guess. I guess this one might be my favorite. But basically in this game, you are trying to buy and sell houses. It's a real estate.
Cool.
And so the game is played over the course of 2 phases. And during the first phase, everybody is trying to bid on these houses. And so the deck, I believe, is numbered 1 to 30. And all the cards are unique. So there's only one number 30, there's only one number 15, etc. And the higher the cards go, the more, I guess I should say, the more extravagant the house becomes. Like I think the number 30 house is in space, like just so you know. And and in each round, you're going to put out a number of cards equal to the number of players, so that everybody has a chance to acquire a house. And everybody starts the game with a certain amount of money. And so then you go into an auction. And the auction is basically going to be for the highest valued house that was revealed. And you just basically go around until everybody's passed. And the first person to drop out of the auction gets the lowest valued house that is still on the table. And you basically go like this until all of the houses that were put out get purchased. And you keep on playing rounds and rounds until all of the houses have been auctioned off, all 30.
Okay.
And then you start the second phase by taking all of the housing cards that you purchased into your hand, and they now become your hand of cards that you have to play because you're now going to sell them. And the way that works is very similar to the first phase in that you put out a certain number of money cards equal to the number of players, and the money cards range from like at the most, I think 15. I don't know if it's 15,000 or 50. I don't know, but I just say $15 all the way down to zero. There are literally nothing. Like you could purchase a house and then sell it for nothing. But I guess that's how real estate goes, right? And so the way that this phase works is everybody is going to simultaneously choose one of the housing cards from their hand, put it face down, and then at the same time you reveal. And then you divvy out the money according to the values around the table. So whoever played the highest valued house is going to get the highest amount of money on the table. And you just keep on going around. So it's interesting because even though you purchased the number 30, which is the highest valued house, because of the way that the money comes out, you might sell it for very little because you're not always going to have the $15 card come out in that round, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's this game of like trying to remember, okay, I know that, Naveen has the 25. I have the 26. Like, when is he going to play that card? Like, there's only 115. How many $15 are in the deck? Like, I don't want to sell this house for less than I paid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's really fascinating.
That's so cool.
Yeah. It's all cards. It's a card game. It's a really neat design. And it's one that we still have in our collection that I don't see leaving.
I'm going to get it.
For a long time. Yeah.
I'm going to get it. You've convinced me. Like, there have been many moments over the past 5 years that I've been like in this hobby that I've like thought about like, oh, I should try that game. I hear everybody says that game's great, and I just kind of have not tried it yet, but now you got me excited to finally try it. It sounds super fun.
It's also very fast, and you can teach it to all sorts of gamers. We will bring it to our families to play like after dinner and stuff, and everybody just ends up really loving it. So that is my number 2. That is for sale.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So now we definitely won't have crossovers at this point.
Yeah.
So my number 2 game I have talked about on the podcast before, and it's so good. It's so good. It's a game that came out in 1995, and similar to it has 2 of the same designers of Princess of Florence, and it's Wolfgang Kramer and Richard Ulrich. And this game was originally published by Hansa and Gluck in 95. It plays with 2 to 5 players, and it is known as the granddaddy of area control games, El Grande.
Oh my God.
Okay. Was that reaction because you have never played El Grande, or because you forgot to put it on your list? Or you just
I've played El Grande. That is a very fascinating choice. Fascinating.
This reaction has me very curious to hear your thoughts on it.
Yes, I'll tell you about it. I'll definitely say.
Okay. But anyway, El Grande is this, like, it's like one of the OG, like, area control or like area majority scoring games. Mm-hmm. It's set in Spain in the 15th century. The main board has like different regions, and each region has a different amount of victory points that you'll score for if you have the most of your caballeros in there, or your little cubes, or the second most, you might get some points, and sometimes the third most, you might get some points. And then there's also this, the tower. What is the tower? The Castillo. There's a tower where you could be placing cubes, and you won't know unless you have a really good memory how many cubes different people have placed in there. You play 9 rounds, and after every 3 rounds, there's a scoring phase where you're going to like score every area. But during a round, you have, at the beginning of the game, you have this hand of like, I think 1 to 13 power cards that are they range 1 to 13. And each round you're going to play one in turn order. And whoever ends up playing the highest card for the round is going to get to have the initiative and take an action first. And, but the thing is, like, when you play these power cards, they're gone. So if on the very first turn of the game, I play my 13, I'm going to get to go first, but now I don't have my 13 anymore. So that's something you kind of have to factor in. But basically, some of the power cards are going to allow you to get caballeros, which are your little cubes, from the province, which is like kind of like the general supply, into your personal supply, which is called the court. So one of the things that you're managing is making sure you have little caballero cubes in your court so you can actually place them on the board, like when you take actions. And then there's also this king pawn that's on one space in one region of the board. And you have to place your cubes, I think, adjacent to it, but you can't place in where the king pawn is when you're like placing them on the board. But then there's one of the actions you could do is to move the king pawn. And so you're doing all these things, and like and then the action cards. Yeah, so they're going to be a certain amount of action cards available, and that's what you're trying to get dibs on first pick of those. Like if there's something you really care about, because the action cards are going to let you manipulate cubes on the board, give you some other like cool powers, and it's also going to indicate how many cubes I think that you're able to like put on the board for that round. So there's that. So there are a lot of like just decisions from this simple like selection, and it's a hard choice, but like of which power card you want to play. And then like once you figure out who's going first, then, you know, choosing which action card you want to take, because it's like maybe you don't want to leave that other card for Monique, but you really want to take this card. And so there are like all these like really cool decisions that come from that whole system, like just the power cards and then the action cards. And then when scoring pops off, everybody's gonna pick a secret region. I think it might be, I forget the timing of when you do it, but all those cubes that you then dumped into the Castillo Tower, you're gonna get to move them to some region on the board before all the different regions score. And everybody kind of like dials that in secretly. And then you also have like a Grande cube that gets put out. And like, I think that gives you more points towards area majority scoring, if I recall. But anyway, I think this game is so awesome. I love that it's such an elegant design, you know, like everything except maybe the look of it still feels so fresh to me. Like if I compare it to like other like area majority scoring games, I'm still like, this is such a like a fascinating engine of just playing around with these action cards. And I love area majority scoring games anyway. So I love the player interaction of them. And yeah, this like the minute I first played this game, I was like, oh, this is like a permanent game in my collection. So
that's awesome.
So I take it you're not a fan?
Well, okay. For context, area majority / area control is probably like one of my least. I don't know. I struggle with those kinds of games. They make me. They really stress me out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They stress me out, and I have a hard time figuring it out in the game because there's so much that you have to consider. You have to like, in area majority games, you really have to look a few steps ahead. Yeah. You know, and every decision you make, you have to really calculate how are they going to react to the decision that you make. And I played El Grande once. What's the max player count on that? 5. We maxed out the player count. Yeah. And it was my first time playing it, and it was like, because of everything, it's kind of a funny game, you know? Like when things unfold, people laugh. Like a lot of things happen that you don't expect to happen. And because of that added wrench, like I really could not plan anything. It was like, it was chaos. And I was just like constantly like doing exactly the wrong thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I can definitely see why people who love area majority love that game. And that game is like, people, they really mention it like over the years. Like that appears on people's lists as being like their favorite area majority game. It's really well loved. So I can definitely see that.
But if you don't like that mechanism much, you might not. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of player interaction, a lot of things that can kind of go down with the action cards. But like, that to me, I enjoy that. You know, that's fun for me. just trying to mitigate some of that. Like, again, like, oh, if I don't take this card and use it, someone else might do it and they might try to screw me over.
Right. Yeah. It is very strategic in that sense, but it's also very funny. And I can appreciate that about that game.
I'm glad you don't love it too, because I mean, that just goes to show like they're just like not everybody's gonna love every game, you know?
Oh yeah,
and everybody has like kind of like just different opinions and like different things they get out of games, different things that they don't necessarily love.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it comes down to preference. Yeah. Like I didn't mention it earlier, but I actually really love the farming.
So there you have it. There you have it.
Yeah. It's very different.
We're on the opposite spectrums with farming and area majority games.
Yes.
But we do align on our Venn diagrams do align on a lot of games.
They do. Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, that is El Grande. Monique, what is the last game on your list?
Okay, my number one is probably the game that I talk about the most. It's still on our shelf. And one of the first games that we played getting into the hobby. This one was released in 2004. So it is the most recent.
Okay.
I was doing the math over and over again. That is more than 15 years, right?
Yes.
It just doesn't seem like it. 2004? Oh my goodness. Okay. It's designed by Klaus Jürgen Werde, I think, published by Amigo for 2 to 4 players, and it is called The Downfall of Pompeii.
Oh!
Have you played that game?
I have not played that game, and I'm like, the name sounds familiar, and it's probably because of you guys?
Oh my gosh, maybe. Oh my gosh,
Downfall of Pompeii.
We first played this game at an international tabletop day celebration, which I don't even know if they celebrate anymore, but back when we were getting into the hobby, that was a thing. We went to our local friendly gaming store
Nice.
and they had a copy of it in like their library where you can just play. And I kid you not, we played it once, we bought it immediately, and then played it over and over again for like the next 3 to 4 days.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Player,
I love that.
just 2-player at home. In this game, the theme is a bit unfortunate because it's something that really happened in history. It's about the Pompeii, you know, when the volcano exploded and everybody had to get out of the city. And so in this game, it's actually also played in 2 phases. The first phase, you are playing cards to populate the city with people of your color, and they are all represented by these tiny cylindrical cubes. And the board is actually really interesting strategically because all of the buildings, you're actually putting them into different buildings, and they're all numbered, but they're also color coded, which is going to be important because you play a card, it tells you how many of that type of card are in the deck. So you can kind of decide which card to play and which building to place out in. And then you place one of your people into that numbered building. The buildings only have a certain number of slots for people. So you can't just put, an infinite number of people there, but there's also a relative bonus. So when you place out one of your people into a building, depending on how many people were already in that building, you can place out more into either a building, I believe they're a building of the same color or a neutral colored building. And so your goal here is just literally get out as many of your people as possible, because at some point in the game, one of the cards will get pulled, which signals the start of the next phase, which is of course when the volcano explodes, and you need to save all your people. You need to try to get them out of the city before they're taken by the volcano.
Yeah.
And so during the whole second phase of the game, players are going to be pulling these lava tiles from a bag. And on the board, the lava tiles themselves have symbols on them. And on the board, there's one starting spot, or I don't know if there's one or more, but there's definitely a starting spot for each symbol. And so if it's the first tile that you place, you have to place it out on that starting spot. But starting with the second tile of that same symbol, you can choose what direction the lava flows in. And if you ever cover a spot that has people in it, then you take all the people and you throw them into the volcano. So
snap!
Thematically horrible, but yes, that is a way for you to remove points from your opponents.
Wow.
And then on your turn, you're moving up to 2 people in the direction of the exit. There are only so many exits on the board.
Gotcha.
And that is also strategic because the number of spaces they can move is equal to how many of the cylindrical people are in that square when you start your movement. So it's really fascinating because you're spending the entire first game trying to populate the board, and then it's the whole second half of the game strategically trying to just get as many of your people out as possible.
Wow.
Because at the end of the game, whoever has the most people out is the winner.
Wow.
So it's wild. I've seen this game
never
really,
played it.
implemented in different ways over time. Like I know at conventions they've had like giant Downfall of Pompeii where it had this like huge volcano. I know some people put like a candle light inside their volcano to make the volcano scarier. Yeah, but it's a fascinating design. That's a 3D volcano.
That's cool. And like the fact that you guys were just like enjoying, like what, how many players did you say it plays with?
2 to 4.
2 to 4, and you guys were still like just having a blast playing it 2
playing
players.
It at 2, yeah. It's because it's both strategic but also chaotic because you cannot anticipate what tile is going to be pulled next. You can just make educated decisions based off of that. But yeah, it's fascinating. It released in 2004. I actually thought it was older than that, just because if you see the box cover,
it looks dated.
Kind of has that 90s stuff, that 90s box. But I guess it was 2004.
Is this out of print?
That is a great question. I feel like it's still in print, but I could be wrong.
I'm gonna check into it. It sounds really cool. It actually like reminded me a little bit of a game that Per Sylvester designed called Polynesia that came out a couple of years ago.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you ever played that, but yeah, you're trying to get these. There's a volcanic island that you have all these meeples on, and you're trying to like get them further out. And it's like kind of a logistical puzzle, like very like minimal randomness to this game too, which is really cool. But it's kind of like more of a medium to lighter weight game. And you have to have boats to get to different islands, but you can use other players' boats, but you have to take one of their meeples as a guide.
Oh my god!
It's really actually, as I'm thinking about it now, I want to play it again.
I've never played it, but I would pretty much play anything by Pierre Sylvester.
I know, right?
Same designer as The King Is Dead,
yes,
right?
Yes,
yeah. What a game!
And Brian Baru, I really like his game designs.
Yeah,
but yeah, that one just kind of like I think it came out in like 2020. I remember when we were doing all the live streams for different conventions since nobody could go to conventions. I hosted someone from the publishing company that makes it, and it was like one of those things where like I was like, okay, this is cool. I'm asking them about the game, but then like later I was like, that game seemed interesting, and I was like, and then I started like looking into it more, and that was probably even like that might have been before I played The King Is Dead, but I was just like, this sounds like a neat game, and I think that's another like not that many people know about it, but I enjoy it quite a bit in its
That's awesome.
Polynesia. But Downfall of Pompeii.
Yes, number 1.
I'm gonna try to snag a copy of that. And then my number 1 game is super old.
Ooh.
Super old. From 1979.
Wow.
It is Dune.
Oh my gosh.
Dune. I love, and I have the 2019 edition of it, but like I love Dune. Dune is designed by Bill Eberly, Jack Kittredge, and Peter Alatka. It's from Gale Force 9. It plays with 2 to 6 players, and it's based on Frank Herbert's book Dune. And to me, like I'm a huge Dune Imperium fan. But like this is the most thematic Dune game I've ever played. So each player leads like one of the key factions, like you're the Atreides, the Fremen, the Emperor, the Spacing Guild, the Harkonnen, or the Bene Gesserit. And every faction has like awesome thematic asymmetric abilities that are really cool. There is like there's area influence and lots of like negotiation opportunities, and you can form alliances with people. Like this is a game that like it'll probably be like a 5 or 6 hour game.
Okay. Wow.
But it's like a really cool, but it's not like that hard. Like that's one of the things I like about it is that like the players kind of make the game really like interesting, intense, but like the rules aren't that hard. Like you go through some phases, you put some spice out, you move people around the board, you try to get spice. But the other thing is the combat system is really juicy. You have like a combat dial, and then you can like, so if I'm in combat with you, like we both are going to set a dial to say how many of our troops we're kind of like putting into this conflict. And because you might not want to sacrifice them all. Cause, I think if you lose, I'm trying to remember if you win, if you still have to sacrifice the ones that you kind of bid, but you're like, you have certain troops, then you have leaders that you can play, these leader tokens that you can slot in to like beef up your combat. strength. And then there are treachery cards. You can do stuff like they're traitors. So there's a lot of like bluffing and like tension that comes from this really, really cool combat system. Again, like the asymmetric abilities are really cool. Like, I don't know how familiar you are with like the lore, the story behind Dune.
I've watched the movie and then I listened to like half of the audiobook.
Yeah. That's funny. I've actually only read half of the book. And
okay.
I watched the
it's long.
I've watched the new movie probably like 4 times, maybe.
Me too.
Yeah,
I loved
so
it.
Good. It's
Gosh.
so good. Yeah,
it's so good.
It's so good. The soundtrack, just gives me chills.
Me
the
too.
cinematography. Okay, yeah. So and I've actually seen the old movie once, which is like kind of silly and ridiculous and wild. But cool because it's like it's unique, you know.
Yes.
But anyway, like the one thing, like the Bene Gesserit player in the game, like during battle, like during combat, you can use the voice, and I could be like,
cool.
You cannot play a poison weapon, or I can say you must play a poison weapon or something like that. And like that's one of the cool things because you're like using the voice. The Atreides player, I think like you get to like I don't remember if you get to like know what like look at cards that you get these like these different cards, but you have data on cards that people have, and you can kind of use that to your advantage. Like the Fremen, you can like ride the worm, and whereas the worm would maybe like attack or harm other factions, you can like ride it to a new destination. And
that's funny.
It's just this is definitely like it's not area control like or area majority like El Grande. But I know you like asymmetric factions.
I do.
So if you've never played this game, I definitely recommend like you and Naveen checking it out because it's like
awesome.
It's another one of these games. Again, it's so old, but it's still such a banger. It's
like
70.
Wow,
79 it came out. Yeah. So it's like 44 years old. And again, it's like it's like the most thematic. And the reason it's long is because of all the like negotiations you can have in the game and stuff. So if you if you really wanted to like keep it a little tighter, you could say, okay, we'll only do like alliance talks for like 5 minutes or whatever. You know, you could kind of put a cap on
chess clock.
Exactly, on some of the negotiations. But I played it for the first time earlier this year, and I still think about it and want to like play it more. It's just,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool. And again, the other good thing, like I said, is that it's not overly complex. Like if you were like, I'm coming over right now to play it, it would probably take me like 5 to 10 minutes to refresh myself, and then would be like, let's go, you know?
Wow, that's really cool. I think that's the best when the system itself it's not about the system, it's about what people are doing around the table with the system.
Yeah, how we interact with it.
Yeah. If a game can really kind of inspire that sort of experience, that's really cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
So anyway, I'm really glad that you were down to like talk about oldies but goodies.
Yeah,
and I didn't realize that you were like, you know, that you love finding these old games. And it was definitely cool that we overlapped on our number 3 with Tigris and Euphrates, but also like now I know some games that I didn't really know much about.
Yeah, likewise.
I need to pick up. But yeah, awesome as always, Monique, talking to you. And like, I'm stoked that Strategicon is only a couple weeks away. Yeah. I've missed the last 2, so I'm excited to go there, and we will have to play at least one of these like old card games or something together while we're there.
We will bring these.
Awesome.
I'll remember to pack them.
Awesome. I want to have Naveen on at some point too, but thank you again for being here, and I will catch up with you soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You've been listening to the Board Game Geek podcast, produced and edited by Candice Harris. Special thanks to Matt Fonda for editing and mixing our music. Be sure to visit us on the web at BoardGameGeek.com. You can also find us on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Twitch under Board Game Geek. You can reach us by email at podcast@BoardGameGeek.com. Thanks for listening, and happy gaming!